Hello everybody. Today I'm going to talk about how I reuse my Kamado Joe charcoal. For certain cooking applications, I like to use charcoal that's been burned at least once, if not twice. Today I'm going to do some chicken wings, and we all know that fresh charcoal will burn hotter than used charcoal, and sometimes new charcoal will also snap, crackle, pop, and depending on how much airflow you've got going through your Kamado. And when that charcoal pops, you might get some spent charcoal on your food. And we're going to use some used charcoal here, and I'm going to show you how I go about getting mine started and getting the Kamado up to temp in relative short order. So let's get started. Alright, we're going to start here with an empty firebox, and I'm going to take a couple of large chunks from my Kamado big block bag of charcoal, and I'm going to line those up here in the bottom. One of the reasons for that is so that we can maintain some airflow coming from that bottom vent through the holes in the fire grate. Alright, so got some larger chunks here, and I'm just going to kind of lay those out in the bottom, stagger them so that we can keep some of those holes exposed. When you use your spent charcoal, you know, they break down into smaller pieces, and if you lay those down here as your base, then you're just going to cover up all of those holes, and you'll restrict the amount of airflow that can reach your charcoal. Alright, so that's a good start. Now I've got my container here of used charcoal that I've accumulated over many various cooks. So I'm going to go ahead and start dumping that here on top. And I'm going to spread that around like so. Okay. Looks pretty good. Alright, to get the fire started, I'm going to do this just like I do any of my other cooks. I have these If You Care 100% biomass fire lighters that I've bought at my local grocery store. I have seen these on Amazon as well. I think it's about $5 a bag or something like that. But I really like these a lot. These are very much so along the lines of the Kamado Joe fire starter cubes that you may have seen. And here's what those look like. So I am going to use 4 of these today. My goal is to get a nice even surface of charcoal lit up, and so that we have even cooking across the whole surface area of the grill grate. So let's get these inserted in here. Just going to kind of wiggle these in, create wells all throughout, like so. Then I'm going to use my Newport torch here to fire them up. Alright, while those are burning, I'm going to slide the bottom vent fully open to kind of get things started. And I'm also going to leave the lid open. Alright, we'll let those cubes burn for about 10 minutes with the lid open, and then we'll be back to see how we're going to get this thing jump started. While those fire cubes are burning, I did want to talk about using one of these chimneys here. I used to use this to kind of get a wide spread of burning charcoal. But I found that this really doesn't hold a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. I have a Kamado Joe Classic, and I just wasn't getting a deep enough bed of charcoal by using this thing. So I came up with another method for really kind of getting a good jump start on getting used charcoal to burn and getting your grill up to temp. So we're gonna go over that here in just a second. All right, we're back out here at the grill. Now, if this was some fresh charcoal all the way throughout the whole bed, I'd probably close the lid right about now and open up the top vent and start to let this thing come up to temp. We're gonna cook chicken wings today at 350 degrees. Since we are using used charcoal, it can take a little bit longer for the grill to get up to temp, and sometimes I just don't have the patience for that. So I've come up with a method to kind of get things rocking and rolling, and for that we are going to use a fan. Just going to kind of turn this on. We're going to point it directly at the top of the fire, let those things get heated up even hotter than they are now, and if need be we'll also point it at the bottom of the vent and leave it on and really feed this thing some oxygen. So let's see what this process looks like. All right, turn on our fan. Okay, decided to remove the grill grate so this will show up better in the video. I'm gonna take that off and set it down. Then we're going to take our fan and we're just going to turn it on, point it directly into the firebox, and we'll start to see some of those charcoals that have caught ember up, and those really start to catch. Now we can see how feeding this some air has really gotten those charcoals going. I can feel the heat coming off of that as well. All right, so at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and let these things continue to burn up. I'm gonna put my grill grates back on, and I'm gonna close the lid. And then we'll probably be back and give that charcoal a stir once it's had time to catch more of the other charcoal. And that way we can get a nice even heat surface. And now that the lid is closed, go ahead and open up the top vent. You can open it fully. There we go. All right, in a matter of a few minutes, we almost reached our desired temperature of 350. So at this point, I'm gonna open the lid, take the grill grate out, and I'm gonna mix that charcoal around. And then we'll be cooking here in short order. To mix that around, I'm going to use the ash tool. All right, then I probably will pop the fan on that again for a little bit. Kind of redistribute that. And that's it, people. So I hope you found that this was helpful. For me, I really like this method because it makes it a lot easier to reuse spent charcoal and get your grill up to temp in relative short order. So I hope you found this tip useful. If so, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Maybe subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you next time.